for the Easton Middle School to cover the cost of a breakout bundle and 30 Chromebooks and a cart. The donors wish to remain anonymous. However, Luke Carroll, the principal of the middle school, is here to discuss it in a little more detail and maybe tell you what the breakout bundle is.
Thank you. Obviously, at the middle school, we're incredibly fortunate and extremely thankful. Parents had come forward and, as Alicia said, would like to remain anonymous, but was really interested in funding something that ultimately is something that we can look forward to. It's something we maybe can't do out of our typical budget, something that is really an item that is in a wish list or a perfect world. And so we had this opportunity. We sat down and I met with John Souza and Susanna Summers, who's here tonight, the Director of Instructional Technology. We sat down and we kicked around a couple different ideas, and we were trying to really come up with something that would impact all of our students, regardless of grade level, impact all of our students, regardless of what subject area they were in. And that's really what we were trying to do as we did this. And I think what really, I can't claim a whole lot of credit because Susanna's input was incredibly valuable. And I think that we have really a plan of how to best spend this money that's going to have the greatest impact on student learning, while also allowing the students to really develop skills of problem solving and collaboration, regardless of what curriculum they're working in. And really that's the idea behind it. So I'm going to turn it over to Susanna Summers, who I cannot thank enough. She did an incredible job for us in helping put this together. We're super excited. It's also super top secret until now.
Don't say anything to the middle school teachers yet.
So we're trying to sort of keep it under the vest because there are many teachers that sort of saw this as a featured item at MassQ, the technology conference, and they're really asking for it. They just don't know that it's something that's coming. So I'll turn it over to Susanna and she can sort of talk about it tonight.
Great. So the idea, we're going to be calling this the innovation part for now at least. The idea came from the fact that right now the current situation at the middle school is that teachers can check out a card for one day. There's no long-term checkouts. You can check out for a whole week at a time, and you just get the card, which is amazing. The Chromebooks themselves can do so much. The innovation card you will be able to sign it out for multiple days at a time, and the card comes with the Breakout EDU box. So that's where I'll start. Breakout EDU is kind of like those escape rooms. You guys heard of those? You go with a bunch of friends, they lock you in a room, and you have to solve a bunch of problems in time to get out. Breakout EDU is from the same philosophy, except this platform, not only do you get the boxes with all of the different types of blocks, but you also get access to their online platform with breakouts already made for a variety of grade bands and content areas. When I first saw these, it was so exciting, but then I immediately thought, how am I actually going to think out a whole breakout for my kids? So that kind of takes that stress off the teacher, and they can find stuff. They can go in there and search in this organized stream, and they have all these breakout options. And it has videos, it has all the coordination ones, it has guides on how to set the locks for all of them. So the platform's truly amazing to get them going. And what we're proposing to purchase with it will be a Breakout EDU school bundle. So it comes with 6 boxes, which is more than enough for a classroom. The purpose of these boxes isn't for a student to work by themselves, but to work in a group to break out together. So not only does it require them to,
exciting.
The
I'm in
total
awe.
of this donation is $9,984.
Wow, it's very generous.
And I do want to throw it out there too, when we met with the anonymous donor, we actually got a breakout EDU kit from a teacher from a nearby district, and we had the donor go through a whole breakout by themselves.
They were very excited.
Yeah.
So fun.
So, is there any way to kind of, I know when you did the new lab up at the middle school, you did like an open house and let people, is there any way that you can do something similar with this?
So my idea kind of comes from the Accepted Google Innovator. So right after I mentioned when I was discussing Google Innovator, we were all accepted, we got into the group chat, and then people started getting boxes, and nobody knew what it was. It was a breakout. Google collaborated with Breakout EDU for that. So the plan is that when the boxes arrive, I, along with the only 2 teachers that know about this right now, are going to plan a whole breakout for the middle school staff, using things like their room numbers, their colored teams, so that they have to work together to break out. So let's say that one of the 8th grade teachers gets a box that has a few people's names in a math equation. They're going to have to go talk to the other people to figure out what the equation could be to get into that first slot. And then when they get into the box, it'll have a set of directions that they have to go to somebody else, and it'll just kind of build up that excitement.
That's awesome.
It's going to be really fun putting that
Yeah.
together, and that's sarcasm. I can't imagine putting one together on that scale, but I have 2 amazing teachers that are going to help me. And back to the MassQ piece, we were so fortunate to take so many teachers this year to MassQ. We were actually invited to take a picture on the field because we were one of the districts who brought so many teachers, which was always a great experience. But the one question that I heard most after we left the conference was, do we have any breakout EDU boxes? Do we have any breakout subscriptions? And it was so tough to say no because I know how amazing the platform was. So it's really exciting to be able to have that come to the district, especially because so many middle school teachers requested it.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Thank you very much, both of you, for all of your work on this.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you to our donor. Very generous.
Yeah, please do convey our tremendous gratitude to the anonymous donor. I'm very curious, but that's really, it's really heartening that someone would reach out like that, would ask you to make the decision about what would be a significant contribution.
Yeah.
And then just make this incredible donation. It really feels good.
Thank you very much.
We need a motion to accept it.
Yes, so I'm going to make a motion to accept the very generous donation of $9,984. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
4 seconds, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is the presentation of Oliver Ames SAT, AP, and college data. Dr. Cabral?
Thank you. So Principal Wes Paul was here last month to present on the SAT the MCAS results. And this month, he is here with Susan Mancuso, Director of Guidance, and Chrissy Pruitt. And they are going to discuss give you an update on the SAT, AP, and college matriculation data for the high school.
We need to move.
Should we move? Do we need to move?
Yes. Please bear with us. It's Justin. Yeah. No, there's no logout. That's... Here we go.
I can do it. Hi, sorry for the delay. So what I'll do is I'll try to get through most of these slides, and then at the end, maybe let you ask questions rather than stopping along the way, because I don't want to waste your time. The first thing I wanted to talk about, excuse me, I'm fighting the same respiratory infection that everyone is. Success on the AP exam is usually defined as an exam score of 3 or higher. I think we've talked about this before, which represents that point that colleges view as being ready for college success. And there's some findings that have been held consistent across the decades, talking about if students score 3 or higher, particularly a strong predictor of the student's ability to persist in college and earn a bachelor's degree. So when we get the results back, one of the things we look for are 3s, 4s, 5s, because that's kind of what our cutoff point is for judging success. A couple of things that I just wanted to point out to make sure we consider is that in our school, 26% of our students took the AP exam last year. 16.3% of our test takers were enrolled in 4 more AP courses. That's number 16 in the state. 509 exams earned a passing score. That's number 33 on the state. Variations in sample size, which when I show you the bar graphs, one of the things that, and we're working, this is our first year presenting this. This is the first time that Susan and I really, and Chrissy, one of the things that's interesting in the bar graph is some of the differences from year to year look fairly substantial, but those differences from year to year can be influenced by a sample size difference of 20 kids taking a particular course. So it's, you may see a jump, you may see a drop. We're going to be looking at this with great detail, but I don't want it to be so alarming in either direction. And then College Board adjusts courses and exams over time and shifts focus, content, and skills. Why I mention that is we certainly take the results that we get back from the AP exams, but one of the problems we have is when we focus our energies on areas that may be of a point of weakness. Let's use calculus for an example. There may be an example in calculus that our students didn't do particularly well on. And so we know that and we work on that. The interesting thing is there may have been 2 or 3 questions in this year's AP on that particular topic. That doesn't become a point of focus the next year. So throwing all your weight behind your analysis of AP exams and your strengths and weaknesses doesn't necessarily always translate into the following year. Your kids are going to knock that particular concept out of the park. And then different populations of students each year in each course. That's just a reality. As classroom teachers know, there are certain years where, I mean, you have a lot of really gifted kids in a particular subject that are taking a particular AP exam, and those kids all do very well. In other years, we don't have that same number of kids in that particular course, so that does make some fluctuations. And then local adjustments to our curriculum, as I said before, are made as we take a look at this. These are the exams that we offer at Oliver Ames High School in the AP. It's a fairly extensive list of AP offerings that our students have. We're not going to be talking about each one of these because it may take us all night. We're going to talk about some of the highlights. So the percentage of students with scores of 3+ on at least one exam, for those of you who can't see the detail here, OA is in blue, the state of Massachusetts is in red, and globally it's in gold. And so you look at the number of students at OA with a 3%, with a 3 or higher, and Oliver Ames High School certainly seem to have done, compared to the state, not quite where we wanted here, and then all of a sudden we jumped out, and we're still above the state, above the global, but these steps here are things we're looking at, and as I said, the differences are a little bit alarming in the sense of this graph, but it doesn't necessarily translate as well. We wish we had had a different way of presenting the data, but we're working on that. But we still have a desire to get further involved in the analysis of this work with both Chrissy and the department heads and taking a look at the data and making decisions based on how our students are doing on particular subsets of the scores and whether or not we see trends in particular courses. Because this is all the courses in AP combined. It's not just a particular topic. And some students do really well, as you'll see. Some tests go really well. Some are not as are a little bit more challenging. I just wanted to mention this. This is important information for the public to know with the AP Scholar program. If you take a look, 45 AP Scholars. That means of the students in our school, 45 of them were designated as AP Scholars, scoring a 3 or higher in 3 or more exams. 27, this is an additional 27 AP Scholars with honors of a 3.25 or higher on 4 or more exams. An additional 39 students are AP Scholars with distinction, a score of 3.5 or higher on all exams taken. And then 9 of our students were National AP Scholars, scoring 4 or higher on all exams taken and scores of 4 or higher on 8 or more exams, 8 or more of these exams over the course of their high school experience. So some things to take a look at. Our BC calculus, if you remember, there's 2 types of calculus. There's AB and BC. The AB course gets to, the best way to describe it is BC goes a lot further in the year and a lot faster. So they get through if you take a look at college courses in calculus, you can take calculus 1, 2, 3, 4. In calculus itself, for BC, they go further and they go at a faster rate, and there's actually a little bit more depth. And you look at the scores here for our students, again, OA being in blue, we've made some significant gains in the last few years, and at this point, our last year's scores were higher than the state, higher than the global in our BC calculus population. Revising our curriculum 2017 exam, the percentage of students earning a 3+ is consistently above state and global averages. This is working with Mary Romans. The percentage of students earning a 3+ or higher on the AB subscore. Let me explain that. When you take the BC test, Calculus BC, those students are scored on the BC exam, but they also get a subscore if they were taking the AB test. So they translate their score from BC to what it would mean if they took the AB score. And if you look at that, on that, the subscore was 100% in 2018, which exceeded the global average of 85%, which is something we should be very proud of, both our teacher and our students. And one of the things that we've continued to do the last couple of years is the students and the teachers sacrifice a Saturday or a Sunday and come in and do mock exams with the students and go through the whole testing experience that they would have when they take the AP exam. Computer science, just another highlight because it was new. If you notice, we didn't have a blue up until this year, but we came right out of the gate and look like we're doing pretty strong. It's our first school year with AP Computer Science. 71% of our students scored at least a 3 or higher on that exam, so we're very happy with that start. English language and composition, which is our senior level course, has always been one of our strong AP offerings. If you notice, OA scores are continually above the state and global average. 100% of our students that have taken the English language and composition AP exam have received a score of 3 or higher for the past 3 years. I think when we look at the preparation that the students get in our English courses in grades 9, 10, leading up to grade 11 AP, and then senior year, it's a smaller group of students who are taking that particular course, but they're very well prepared and they enjoy the process, and for some reason we continue to lose sight of the fact that we should be celebrating some of these successes, and I need to do a better job of thanking Joanne and the teachers who teach our AP courses when they have results like this, because it's pretty phenomenal. Microeconomics, if you notice again, the combination of micro and macro courses provides a rigor of true college level courses since 2016. The course is open to sophomores, which is one of the early courses that our kids can take, and students are better prepared as data has increased by 38% from 2015 to 2018. Back before we made this combined course, you may have remembered we introduced micro as a separate course for a full year and macro as a separate course for a full year, and then we combined it, so this is good results as our combined course. Fewer kids are taking it, it's more rigorous, but they're doing much better. And our Spanish AP continues to just be exceptional with the students who are prepared in that. The creation of the pre-AP course in 2012-13 has strengthened the AP course overall. Students are well trained in the use of language lab where a test is administered, and 100% of the students scored a 3 or higher since 2014. Statistics, with some early starts in 2015 and 2016, there was a drop. 17, there was a drop. 18 is the second year of a new teacher taking over the program, and in the second year there was significant changes. This is a young teacher. They went through the AP Summer Institute. They've worked really hard. I think this will continue to be a good trend. The one thing I do want to mention about statistics fluctuations is that's one of the statistics courses, one of the AP courses that in some years, students who are good students in math, but they're not at the calculus level of expertise, will take statistics. And it's good for them, just like the AP philosophy is to give these students an opportunity to take the course. It's great, but some years those students are still challenged, as you'll see with environmental science, they're still challenged by a course that's a college level course in a subject area that's not their strength sometimes, but they want to show schools that they're trying. So. And some of the things that we're just looking to consider over the course of this next year and in the future. We showed the AB score. We showed that in the class of 2017, there was a fairly significant number of students that were scoring 3 or higher, and then last year there was a little bit of a drop. One of the things that we noticed in this drop was talked about modeling rates. So modeling rates is a thing that I'm not very familiar with in math, but it's a concept in which students have to take data and make predictions based on their knowledge of, let's say you were trying to take a look at the rate of change in temperature over time. You would have to be able to take a look at the data, create the formula to devise that, and then try to determine which 2 scenarios had the fastest rate of change in temperature. That kind of modeling was an area that they noticed our students needed to work on. Now that goes back to what we talked about before. If they put all their eggs in that basket, does that pay off in this next year round? But we do get into the details of taking a look at some of the differences from year to year of our students. So we do need to do some more work on modeling, and our students have no prior experience with AP Calculus. Some districts, this is interesting, some districts offer students to take AB Calculus in their junior year, and then they take BC Calculus in their senior year. And so the BC Calculus students have actually already had a lot of what they did in AB. We don't have that, and our pre-calc course doesn't have as much calculus information as we think we probably should take a look at infusing. to give our students a little bit of a leg up on the competition, so to speak, when they get to the AB course. So that's where we talk about making some adjustments to our pre-calc course and honors level. Go back one. Environmental science. This is one of the courses that a lot of students who have not taken an AP course before, in their senior year or in their junior year, they tackle this one. And it's a good course for them to tackle because the computations that are required are not as significant as they would be in math or in some other science courses, but it's still a challenging course. And some students find that they signed up for a course that they think was going to look pretty good on their transcript, and it does, but it's a lot more challenging than they anticipated because they haven't, as I said, it's their first AP course in a lot of cases. But it does provide our students that opportunity for rigor of a college level course, and our instructors continue to use the data to take a look at making changes to how we adjust in our curriculum. World History is another course in the senior year that students who are in the humanities take as a first year AP course, and that is another one where we take a look. We're not making excuses as much as we're trying to look at the students who take that, and the students who are taking AP World History are not taking as many other AP courses as some of the students who are taking some of the other AP courses that have had more significant success. I think that's it for me on AP. So
just keeping back with world history one up.
Sure.
That's the one this past summer, there was all that controversy about in terms of changing the time frame that the content area covers for AP world history. Was that, I just remember reading somewhere that they used to cover like ancient civilizations, and now they moved it forward or something?
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
history, the social studies frameworks have just the social studies frameworks have been revised, and we are currently in the process of looking at how history is taught K through 12, because there are revisions. The biggest revisions are in world history as well as in 8th grade.
but it's not the AP World History, it's the
Right.
state World History.
Right. So Matt Auger is doing a phenomenal job as our department head, kind of leading the charge with looking at that coursework. But the AP has that scripted program to use for world history.
What I can say, I don't have all the information for AJ, but what I can say is there were some significant changes. They did make adjustments, and I think for the teachers and the students, I think they were perfect in a certain manner, and then things were adjusted, so it could have that could possibly have had an impact.
And I think there was talk this time of introducing a new AP course that would actually cover that content period that they had slashed off from
Yeah.
this one.
And we're still, everybody that takes an AP class takes the test,
Correct.
correct? If you're in that class, you take the test.
Correct.
Okay. There's no choice.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Karen.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
First of all, when you say 26.3 OA students took an AP course last year, how
Percent.
does that particular number compare with the state in terms of the number of students in a particular high school that take an AP course? Do you know? by any
So
chance?
are you referring to the percentage, the
Well,
26?
you have that we were number 16 in terms of students.
26.3%
Four or more.
of the students took an AP exam.
Right, right. But
How does that compare?
I'm just wondering, do you have a sense of, what in other high schools, what percentage of kids take an AP course? Now, you have 16% take 4 or more, and that
Right.
makes us number 16 in the state. You have 509 have a passing score, that's number 33 in the state.
Sure.
But what I was wondering is, do we have a sense of where that 26.3% of students in a particular high school?
We don't have it tonight, but it's certainly something we could
I
get.
was just curious, because that's also would be telling.
Sure.
Because, typically, the more students that take AP tests, often the more challenging it is to get high scores, because
Right.
you are also including students that are taking it, it's a stretch for them.
Right.
So I was just curious how that.
I would venture to guess we're fairly high in the state, based on the fact that we don't select students to take the AP exams. We don't allow students who have signed up for a course, they're over their head, they're not doing that great, to bail out, they still have to take the exam, they still are pushed to the finish line. Some districts don't do that for reasons that's why it's difficult sometimes to compare districts to districts with AP scores, because each district has a different philosophy on students taking that AP exam.
True. Got another question. You mentioned success is considered a 3, but later you referred to passing. Is that the same?
It's synonymous, or,
Okay,
yeah,
just
analogous,
wondered
yes. Usually, and again, it's considered in the eyes of the institutions that are taking our students, what a college level course would expect for a college level student. It should not get confused with they're getting college credit at every institution, or it's helping students get out of college earlier. It does for most students, it does go on their transcript if they get a 3 or higher at the college they attend. But I'll use my own children as an example. For the AP scores that they had that were 3 or higher, that allowed them to, instead of taking an intro course in their freshman year, they were able to bump up to the next level of the course. It didn't help me financially, and it didn't help them get out of school earlier, but it did help them take more advanced courses sooner, as well as get into the lottery for dorms faster, because they had credits as a sophomore by the time they were second semester freshmen.
Well, you're right, there's a huge range. I mean, I know the colleges my kids attended, one would not accept less than a 5.
Right.
And one would not accept less than a 4. So,
And some
I think
don't take
most
it
state
at all.
colleges do accept
And one of the
it.
things that we struggle with, and we continue to work on ways with me and Susan and our department heads and teachers, is you have a student who's been accepted to a college that doesn't accept AP scores at all. It doesn't really matter. They're already accepted. If they score a 2 or they score a 5, it really doesn't matter. So then we're pleading with them for a sense of character and integrity to give us their best efforts. But I haven't met a person who can honestly say if they didn't really think this test counted, they would work as hard. And so sometimes kids at every school, not just OA, but every school, who go into that senior, they go, I've done my work, I'm into my school, I'm really ready to get on with life, and they don't work as hard as they could. Because we see the results. We know that student should have scored a 4 or 5, and they scored a 2. I'm not going to name names, but
I hope
that
not.
happens.
So a couple little digging down questions. So you had scores, you said that it was a range of scores 3.25, 3.5. Those were just averages, right? Because aren't the scores always at one number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Correct.
Yeah, because they have.
That's the
Yeah.
average
Yeah.
for the number of students,
Yeah,
correct.
I assumed that,
Yep.
but didn't actually state that. So I wondered if they had actually changed the.
No, that's a good point. It's an average.
I was really happy to see the BC calc scores. They're much higher than they have been for a while.
Correct.
So that's impressive. I was happy to see that. And, you didn't show American history. Now, traditionally, we've done really well in American
We
history.
continue to, Chrissy and I worked, that's why I said we kind of picked the
I know
highlights.
I know you couldn't show all the
Correct.
courses. I just was
Right.
curious if that's continuing.
Continuing to
That's
do
typically been a very
extremely well.
strong area.
Yes.
I need to look into this modeling rates thing again, because there's so much I don't know that I don't want you to have to try to explain. And the environmental science, I do think that's a huge difference in terms of the number of students, and I would sort of anticipate a decline under those circumstances,
Right.
but just, anyway, that was really interesting, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
So I've got one last, which is not really related to the scores as much as it is related to, so when students sign up for an AP course and then they have to take a test, if you're taking 4 AP courses, it's fairly costly at the end of the year to have to take 4 tests.
Yep.
Are students eligible for the same kind of financial assistance on an AP exam as they would be on something else, for example?
So if you have a student on free and reduced lunch, it's a reduced rate. And in some cases, if it's a significant hardship, we can maybe even cover the expense and do a payment plan or something. We've worked out arrangements with families before. We try to have that conversation early on so that they understand it's going to be $96 per exam due in May, so they prepare for it.
to present some data on SAT findings. I'm not sure the last time or if at any point you've had some information about the SATs, so we'll give you a little overview. With the SAT, however, we don't have 5-year data like we do for the APs, and that's because College Board, which oversees the SATs, made significant changes to their tests in March of 2016. So we have data from 2017 and 2018. So what we're looking at is data from all members of the class of 2018, and then data from the class of 2017. The class of 2017 was impacted by the change. So what happened during their junior year was that they were taking PSATs. They may have taken PSATs their sophomore year. And then typically our juniors start getting ready to take their SAT spring of their junior year. That March is when they made the significant change to the test. So we have some data from 2017, but again, I tried to tease out and just have clear content from kids who only took the new test onward. So for example, we did have kids who took, we prepared them, they knew the change was coming, and some kids felt more comfortable with the old test, so they planned and took all their SATs before the change. And then we had some kids who did half and half, and then we had kids who just went straight ahead with the new test material. So we tried to tease out with that class just the true data from the new test onward. The reason for the change, I think, was they just realized they needed to shake things up a little bit for a significant period of time. It was, you had the 2 sections, the critical reading and the math, and then the required writing, the essay. And your score could be a range up to 2,400. I think they realized that the essay was not really being used significantly during the admissions process. And they also recognized that the SAT is really, it uses a lot of critical thinking, abstract thinking. I think they wanted to make it a little more concrete and relatable to students, so they changed their format. So by doing that, this was the breakout. So for part 1, it's actually 2 sections comprised of, the overall, it's 2 sections comprised of 3 exams. The first part is what they now call evidence-based reading and writing. So again, the reading, it's a lot of analysis. The writing and language is a lot of grammar and things of vocab, things of that nature. Those sections, though, when it comes to a score, they combine these 2 pieces, and you can get anywhere from a 200 to an 800 on that section. Mathematics is still the same. It typically covers algebra, geometry, and a little bit of trig. And again, that range, you can get anywhere from a 200 to an 800 on your mathematics section. So the maximum score you could get on your SAT is a 1600. Okay. Again, the essay is now optional, and that is scored completely separately. Fewer schools require the essay, maybe your more competitive colleges, but overall, fewer and fewer are requiring the essay. So for some kids, that's, bless you, that's wonderful news. So there's a lot of numbers here. So right now we're looking at 2018 data. So these are all members of the class of 2018. And again, you have the choice with or without essay. So you can see up at top, more students preferred to take the test without the essay. And overall, they were earning a mean score of 1155. Again, that's the max you can get is 1600, which is nice because it is higher than the mass average, which was about 1125. And then with the essay, we had about 173 test takers with a mean score of 1187, with the mass average being 1171. And then just for your purposes, I did a breakout so you could see how our kids were doing with the evidence-based reading and writing section and the math section, and again, teased out between those who took it with or without essay. And I think you'll see across the board, our scores are stronger than the mass average, which is really nice. One thing I want to mention here, and I have it on all of the different points, when I talk about benchmark, so here it says 86% of the students met the College Board benchmark. And then again, I explain it down here. So I'm going to go to the next slide to explain what the benchmark is. Okay. So College Board actually determined the benchmark, and what they're saying is for any student who earned a 530 or higher on the math section, met the benchmark. And the benchmark would be this is a predictor that in college, they would earn at least a C or higher in math-based classes, particularly algebra, stats, pre-calc, or calc. So again, you're looking for a score of a 530 or higher on that math section. And if you go back, so for example, in the math section here, for the kids without essay, 71% of them were meeting the benchmark. And for those who took it with essay, 75% were meeting the benchmark. Do you want me to go through this a little bit more in depth right now, or do you want to, we can cover it later with questions? Again, the 2017 data, we have smaller numbers, but again, that's only because we are looking at just the kiddos who took it after March. And overall, I think we had a slight dip up here with the kiddos who took it without essay, but overall, again, if you look at all the numbers in comparison to the state averages, we were at average or above, which is nice. And I think you can see again, for the examples here, the benchmark. In this case, just to go over here. So for the evidence-based portion, where the students needed a 530 or higher in math to meet the benchmark, they needed a 480 or higher to meet the benchmark for the for the evidence-based reading and writing. Some takeaways from this, just to keep in mind. Students now have the option to do something that's called a super score, which means we always encourage students to take the test at least twice. I would say students on average take it 2 or 3 times. We don't recommend they take it beyond that. I don't think scores will change much. College Board will happily let them take it as many times as they want for $48. But it's great because, as you know, with any sort of test, you can still practice, but the day you show up, it's still a little unusual. Maybe you're having a bad day. So obviously, anytime you take it a second time, the hope is that your scores will adjust, which is nice because then you can mix and match the scores you want to send to your colleges. So, let's say you really nailed the math the first time around, you take the test again, your evidence-based writing score went up, you can pull from those different tests, which is nice. People have different theories about the SATs. Is it a strong, some people say it's not necessarily a strong predictor of college success, some disagree. I think a lot of colleges are now looking they're taking a more holistic approach to it, which is now why many are now becoming test optional. I think they recognize that, sometimes kids are just not strong test takers, but that doesn't, represent how they could be as a student overall. I don't think the SAT is going away anytime soon. I think it will always be around, but I think more colleges are trying to look at the overall picture of a student and give them the choice. I will say though, for many schools that are test optional, they still encourage you to send the scores anyway, just so they have a baseline understanding of how you're doing. But it would not, if they are truly test optional, it should not have a huge impact on their admission decision. This is really nice. A strong SAT score could offset a low GPA. As we know, there are some kids who are very bright, who really struggle with school, and may have a low GPA. All of the state institutions will offset. They do a sliding scale. So if they're looking at a certain GPA, let's say it's between like a 2.7 and a 2.9, because they really want that 3.0 or higher, they'll want to see a certain SAT score. So this is a nice second chance for some kids who are struggling with a GPA but really can nail that SAT score. That could be a real help for them. We do encourage the PSAT, and we encourage them to take it twice. They can do it their 10th and 11th grade year of high school. Usually we will see, and what College Board says is that if the students do take the PSAT both years, they're more likely to earn 150 points higher on their SAT, which is really nice. We always remind kids it's just practice, but I think it is a good way to prepare them for the SAT. What's even better is that Khan Academy offers free SAT tutorials in general for anybody. However, if you've taken the PSAT, you will receive an access code, and you can sync that access code into Khan Academy, and it will pull that student's PSAT data and create a tailored tutorial for them,
which is another reason why it's great to do the PSAT at least once. You get that opportunity, so. Previously, I think OA did offer test prep opportunities here after school, but we found in the last few years we weren't getting the numbers for whatever reason. Maybe it was just in conflict with work, practice, other commitments. More online opportunities were becoming available. Some families were preferring to do weekend options. So we ended up eliminating the prep option here. That's not to say we couldn't introduce it again if we had the interest, but again, I think there's a lot of options out there now, so it's kind of diversified, and we're not getting the numbers. But there's a quick synopsis of a lot of information, but I don't know if you have any particular questions about our SAT data.
Do we have a lot of kids who take the SAT and the SAT subject matter tests? Where are those now? It's been a while since I've even.
We do have students who take the subject test. I will say fewer schools are requiring them, so we're not really getting huge numbers. I think it's your more competitive colleges or colleges that have very competitive majors, nursing, for example. I will say sometimes kiddos, if they are already taking an AP, do the subject test in that area because they're already studying and they just say, what the heck, let's see how it goes. But I will say it's not a large number anymore.
I sort of feel like this is deja vu all over again. It was 1,600, then it was 2,400, now it's back to 1,600.
And now it's back, exactly, yeah.
And I remember about 2 years after it went to 2,400, everybody would say, oh, I have this great SAT score. It was like, and it would be like 1,550. So people would think, wow. But of course, it was based on the 2,400.
Right.
So I find that quite entertaining and confusing. But what did you mean when you said the essay is not really being used in the admission process? I just wanted a little clarification.
Yep. So it used to be the essay was required, and the intention was that they were going to use that score as part of the analysis of looking at the student's overall SAT score when they're taking everything into consideration during the admissions process. They now have made it optional because what they were finding out, College Board was recognizing and speaking to colleges, was that they weren't utilizing that data really during the admissions process. What they were using that essay score really was for, once a student was accepted, for placement purposes, or just not considering it at all, which is why they now make it optional, because they just realized it wasn't being used in the means that they thought it was going to be used. So they just eliminated it as a requirement.
Okay, so I'm still a little confused then, because when it says with essay, mean score of 1187, without essay 1155. But if you were, even though the essay is optional, I thought that's what would have, since it's scored separately, it's just incorporated then into the reading and writing and language?
No, not even in that. It's just a completely separate number altogether.
But then how do they get a mean score then, for it, where it says with essay, mean score, test papers with a mean score?
So what I mean when I say with essay is that they're still just looking at those two sections, but I just teased out the between the kids who took that essay exam and the kids who took.
I thought that was a possibility. I just
Yeah.
wanted to be sure about that. Okay,
Yeah.
that's very interesting. Okay, they used to call it a writing sample, and it was part of the 1,600 SAT.
Yeah, and now it's not even. So when we talk about that 1,600 range, it's not even factored into it for the kids who take it with the essay.
Thank you.
The act, I don't see any data on that. Is that
Oh, the
something that
ACT.
we don't?
We do, our students do. We don't have a significant number of students who take it. Certainly we could provide data on it if you wanted it. I will say that if you look in the New England area, the standard trend is to take the SAT. If you look at schools out west or in the south, their traditional test is the ACT. And what I always tell families is they take them like Visa or MasterCard. You can submit either one. Our numbers have increased a little bit with the ACT, but we don't have the significant numbers like we do with the SAT.
And just so you know, she did have that bullet point in the first round of the slides about the ACT. No, we edited things.
Didn't make the cut.
Exactly, so that didn't make the cut.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Susan.
So then we'll switch gears and talk about college this data is based on the class of 2018. Just to give you just a synopsis of, our numbers, what our kids are doing, what's going on. Last year we had a graduating class of 324, and I'd say overall 88% were going on to a four-year college, and that includes public, private institutions. I didn't tease it out any further. I could if you wanted me to. And then it goes down from there, 4% in 1 or 2 year programs, tech programs, certificate programs, things like that. Proudly, we always have students who enlist in the military, in the armed services. And then we do have a percentage of students who are going on to do full-time employment. Sometimes that's for family companies, places they've worked part-time and now transitioning to a full-time position. Our goal ultimately is to work with every student, make sure they have a plan after high school. I will say that always there's a percentage here, we just put it as other. That could include kids who at the time of reporting still had not decided on a plan. We're taking gap years. We're finding that a gap year is becoming, it's not a huge jump, but we're definitely seeing more kids talking about gap years, talk about travel or whatever, so that kind of incorporates that 4% of other. So 300 students applied to colleges and were accepted to at least one school of their choice, which is really nice. We represented 264 schools representing 33 states, the District of Columbia, and even Scotland this past year. So that's where they were accepted. Of course, they picked one, but it's nice to see the broad range of the array of schools that they were applying to across the country. The most popular college was UMass Amherst. I think people really recognize it's a strong school, strong programs, great price. So it was very popular with our students last year. And the most popular majors, as reported by students, were business fields, whether it was marketing, management, accounting, economics, so forth, and then STEM-related fields, whether that was nursing, chemistry, bio, engineering, computer science, things like that. So what we have the students do is they're required to complete an exit survey through Naviance before graduating, so we can collect this data from them. So they list, within Naviance, they've listed the schools they're applying to, and then they're supposed to go back and let us know if they were accepted, waitlisted, denied, let us know what their final decision was, and what their chosen major was going to be. So that's where we pulled this information from. And I have to give Grace Chang a shout out. She's one of our seniors. She's doing community service this year in guidance. So we gave her some of this data and she manipulated into lots of beautiful graphs and charts. So this was one of them. I told her, I'm like, I'm going to shout out your name. And she was like, okay. So, but she nicely color coded it so you can see, and I think you might have the handout there too. So as you can see, she teased it out a little bit further in terms of those STEM fields, health and medicine, science, math, technology, but you can, just based on the pie chart, you can see where the interest lies for our students. And that, I think, has been the trend for the last couple of years. I don't think that'll change drastically. I think we've seen that for a while. Business and STEM fields have been very popular with kids. But certainly we always have kiddos interested in education, journalism, video game design. That's become increasingly popular as well. So, but I thought that gave a nice visual of where the interest is right now with our kids. Data. So, the state has a lot of great tools that we can now utilize. I think we're starting to utilize them, and we're talking more about how we can tap into this resource. So the state, I've talked about two things here. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them or not. One is called DART data. And this is really great because you can do some, you can compare to other states, to other high schools in the state, and try to get a sense of where your students lie in terms of college preparedness, graduation information, things like that. And then the EWIS, Early Warning Indicator System. Again, based on the data in there, it helps you maybe flag or highlight kids you're concerned about who might not graduate from high school, but also who may not be prepared for college if that's their route. They look at a lot of different pieces. They look at your college enrollment trends, how many kids are persisting, which means how many are staying and actually being successful in college. And then they look at pieces, current pieces, their current attendance, discipline, MCAS scores, things like that. So our job, or our goal, is really to kind of pull this data and figure out how we can target kids now who might be struggling. If we have concerns about them not graduating, and I think we do a good job of that already. But then trying to then go to the next level and say, okay, which kids are we worried about who aren't going to be successful in college, and how can we work with them now to prepare them? So that's some great data that the state has put together. This is one slide from the DART data. I pulled it directly from the site. These high schools here that have been listed, these were pulled from the state. These are the ones that they thought we were comparable to, whether we agree with that or not. Just based on some certain findings, those are the surrounding areas they felt we were comparable to. But we did include Mansfield and Sharon at the bottom, since they are very local to us. So this is based on class of 2016 data. So this column here talks about high school enrollment for 2017-18. And then this column here talks about the class of 2016 college enrollment rate. How many of our students went on to college from the class of 2016? This column here is that persistent rate. How many of them went and continued on for their sophomore year of college? So of our 88% of students who went on to college, 92.3 of them did continue for their sophomore year.
One thing we noticed here, just in conversation, was that out of the high schools that were listed, we did have a higher rate, or actually the highest rate of students going to college, the college enrollment rate. But yet we noticed that it was lower in the persistence rate of college students. So while it was still high at 92.3%, it made us wonder, what is going on with those students after their first year? What is causing them to not go into their second year compared to the other districts that we're comparable to?
Yeah. I do think a small percentage, and it could be a variety of factors, things that maybe we can support and work with, and then, I think there's always some outside factors that we don't have any control over, and that could also explain maybe why the dip for the persistence, whether it's money, family issues, health issues, whatever it might be, could explain perhaps why they didn't return for their second year.
And I'm sorry, this also does not include if they take a year off and then go back.
Correct. Here's just another slide I pulled from the data. In this instance, I pulled from Foxborough, since they use them as they use Foxborough as one of our comparison schools. Oliver Ames is the orange, Foxborough High is the black line, and then the state is the gray line. So you can see, if you wanted to do comparisons to other schools just to see how we're performing, or if we have any concerns, it's showing, in this instance, with at least Foxborough High, we're pretty much on a fairly similar path in terms of number of our students. First of all, how many start in the cohort, how many graduated high school within 5 years, how many enrolled in college immediately after graduating, and then how many persisted for that following year. So I think if you're ever, trying to get on, if you're ever concerned, are we all way off base, or how are we doing, you can look at your neighboring towns or similar towns and kind of get an understanding of where you are. And again, I think in this case, we're pretty much on par with Foxborough, and certainly above the average of where the state currently is. This data is based on 2015. That was the most recent information I could pull from the data for these slides.
Sorry, Susan. 2000, class of 2015?
Yes. My slide's a little wonky. It was the best I could fit that image in there. But the state now has a new report called the FAFSA Completion Report. So the FAFSA is that free application for federal student aid. So if any student is looking for any kind of financial aid whatsoever, the family would have to complete a FAFSA. This is really nice because I think a lot of times money is always a barrier for families, and I think sometimes they get nervous, don't understand how it works. The FAFSA completion report allows us to go in and see which families have completed the FAFSA, which ones have an incomplete application, or if they're not even found in the system. And that allows us to then reach out to those families to say, we can provide you with resources or support, do you need help? Especially if that is the one big barrier for them. You know, sometimes families, it's overwhelming, they get stuck, they're like, forget it, we're not even gonna try this, and then they shut down. But if we can work with those families and help them complete that information, that might be another nice step. You know, some students are getting into school and not doing the FAFSA, so they're not getting a financial aid package, and then they don't go. So this they just started a year or two ago, so we won't have we have it for the class of 2018. Obviously, we won't have all of it yet for the class of 2019. This is really helpful, particularly for first-generation families or EL families, where this might be a significant struggle for them. And we do have some free resources and agencies we work with in the Brockton area that can work with those families to help them fill out the information for free. So, again, this is just a nice opportunity for us to reach out to families who are struggling. We always offer it, but, you know, sometimes families are reluctant to come forward with that. So in short, just a few highlights here. I think overall the numbers indicate that a majority of our seniors do have a plan in place before high school, which is our ultimate goal. You know, I say it at every parent presentation, you know, our goal is to make sure that those students have a plan as they leave high school, whatever their plan may be. We support whatever their goal is. And many of them are going immediately into school in the fall. I'd say we have a handful of students who are taking gap years, which I know makes families nervous. I think it made me nervous initially when talking to kids, because you're thinking, they're never going to go back, they're not going to do it. I actually worked with a student a few months ago who did take a gap year and is now applying for schools. So, and we do welcome them back if they want help from us. You know, they can come in and see us. We'll help them with their applications. As I mentioned, with the third and fourth bulletin, administration and guidance are looking for ways how we can use that data, the state data, to work, you know, highlight, I don't want to say target, find those students who need the help, who are at risk of not being successful beyond graduation or not, you know, being successful at the high school level, and figure out ways we can really support them. What else can we be doing to help them? And then, as I mentioned, the FAFSA completion report. I think that's really a huge thing as well in helping families. So those are the big takeaways. Any questions?
I have one numbers question.
Yes.
Nancy could probably answer in about 30 seconds. But on the slide where you did, when you looked at all the Ames and the Foxborough cohort students, so I want to make sure I'm understanding this. So, you know, 289 students, we had 82% enroll in college immediately, right? Of that 82%, then 75% of that 82% persisted into their second year.
Yes.
And then of that 75%, 98% graduated within 5 years? Is that, I'm just trying to figure that out.
High school graduation.
That the 98%, that's high school graduation.
Never mind. That answers
I know, it's, yeah.
And so do we have data beyond the second year in terms of the persistence factor?
You can pull some completion reports. Obviously, it would be for classes where we know 2019, so we'd be looking at, you know, 2014 data. And I'm trying to remember when they started implementing this. We should be able to get completion reports, though.
Because I know, I guess I'm assuming that that means typically if the student can make it through to their second year, that the likelihood of them getting to completion is higher.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought that was interesting what you said about UMass Amherst, because even in my kids' days at OA, the students referred to UMass Amherst as Olive Ames Part 2.
Yeah, you know, I think
Part 2.
maybe it could be. I do. It's funny though. In speaking with the rep recently, you know, they said they're really looking for a 3.5 GPA or higher for the honors program. We had a few students even with 4.0s who weren't getting accepted to the honors program. So I think it's really, I think kids are starting to recognize that it's a really great school. And with so many of them looking to go on to, you know, grad school or, you know, beyond law school, med school, whatever it is, I think kids are recognizing that If they can walk away with the least amount of debt as an undergrad, the better, just in general, but also because they know so many of them are going to be going on for, you know, graduate school where there isn't money. You're going to be paying a lot in loans. So I think, you know, and you know, kids get excited about it. I think it's a large school. It's dynamic. It has a lot going on. So, you know, I think they get excited about it. But I can see where that comes from. Yeah.
Anything else? No? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Very much.
That's interesting. Thank you. Have a good
Thank you.
night. Okay, next item on the agenda. Discussion and possible vote to approve the agreement with the Easton Girls Softball League. So we have the memorandum of understanding in our packet. Dr. Cabral, did you want to say anything about this, or?
No, this
Okay.
is, we've done it for a couple of meetings now, and it's gone back and forth, and I think both parties are satisfied
Yep.
with the changes that have been made. So if you're ready to
Yeah,
vote on that.
does anyone have any questions or comments on this? Any concerns about the language, questions? Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding with the Eastern Girls Softball League. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, great, thank you. We'll sign this and get this off. Next item on the agenda, public comment. No? Okay. Superintendent notes.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Assistant superintendent notes? You look kind of shocked over there.
Sorry. I just wanted to update everyone on our progress on UBD.
Great.
Our unit rating. Our teams of teachers continue to meet to plan their units in math and ELA in grades K through 5. Our administrative team is overseeing the work and meeting with teams as they continue planning. I meet with the elementary principals monthly, and we assess progress and identify needs throughout the district. Some grade levels have not begun the process yet, and others are well into their progress, well on their way. We've been very pleased with the work that has been previously done, how it's been a nice launch into completion.
So what are the factors in terms of grade levels that are well on their way versus grade levels that haven't started the work yet?
So what we did was all the teachers throughout the district in grades K through 5 have identified with a team, whether they are on the ELA team, the math team, the science team, or the social studies team, to complete units. I think some people were concerned that they were starting from scratch, although they had already worked on units years prior. So when we were able to bring that to them, to show them this work has been done, they were very happy to see that the work had been saved, as we had told them, as well as the amount of work and their understanding of it in relation to the standards. So I think that we are in a much better place than we had originally thought. Collectively, I think the message is out there, and the teachers are very excited about moving forward with this. In fact, our third grade team again met today. I have not been updated on where exactly they are yet, but when I check in with them, they're working very diligently, as are the other teams that are meeting.
Great,
Yes,
thank you.
that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. School committee notes?
So I only have one school committee note, and it's related to school planning committee. I just want to update the school committee that at our school planning committee meeting last evening, the group voted to approve and send our PDP, which is our preliminary design program, off to the MSBA for their review and comments and conversation. So that PDP includes things like the educational program, what's the state of the current environment, as well as preliminary looks at what the possible alternatives might be.
So what happens after that?
So, all of our alternatives are going into the MSBA. After this, we expect that we will move forward with, I think, 4 alternatives that we will continue to pursue in depth during the, I guess, February through May timeframe. By the time May is here, we will have gone through from those 4 to the one that we are saying needs to move forward for us to move into schematic design. After May, again, at every point along the way, we have to have MSBA approval and feedback. That's a collaborative conversation.
So do they have feedback on which site would work?
Yes.
Okay.
They'll absolutely. I mean, we will. The way that I've described it to everyone is the process really unfolds the best solution, I think.
Okay.
But part of that process is feedback and comments from the MSBA.
Okay.
So that's what will continue to happen.
Great.
So
Exciting.
hopefully, yeah, that's very
I'm just
exciting.
getting a little chuckle here because I made a note and then I realized when I looked at it, it says SPC PDP to MSBA on 115, PSA next. And I thought,
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I understand
There
that.
are a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot of acronyms But luckily, we have a really great team of consultants that have guided us through this process and
Great.
really know what they're doing. So that's very helpful. The one interesting piece that I will kind of put out there, because I know that the public may be interested, is as we continue now, probably starting in the late January, early February timeframe, continuing to look at 4 sites, 4 options in depth. Some of those options will be at the Parkview site. So we are going to go ahead and begin a much more in-depth and thorough traffic analysis that won't just include the Parkview site, but we'll kind of step back and look at the entire campus and kind of the surrounding neighborhoods.
a couple
So,
blocks out,
Yeah.
around the entire perimeter of the campus,
Yeah.
behind the high school, behind the middle school, over the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that will
Right.
be very beneficial to us regardless of what happens with the project on
Yeah.
campus.
And do you anticipate more community meetings?
Yes, we talked about that last night too. I'm not sure exactly at what points they will occur, but we did talk as we begin to narrow down options. We really want to make sure that we're providing members of the community with an opportunity to give us feedback on the process that we've used, what they think about that, how we're moving forward. So I
Great.
would imagine we'd probably see, in the springtime, we'll see maybe 1 or 2. And then definitely, as we know that when people are really going to want to be able to give us feedback is when we really start designs on that final plan.
Okay.
So that will be after the May timeframe. So probably through the summer.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else?
I'm just going to add a little something. Jane mentioned that we have a great design team, which is absolutely true. In fact, it's fascinating to kind of listen to them explain the very intricate process that we all have to go through. But Jane, of course, did not mention that she is far and away the hardest working, most
That's not-
absolutely committed and dedicated member of that. Am I right?
Oh,
Of the, I mean, it's a
She gives the team
wonderful.
a run for their money.
It's a wonderful committee. She
It's
does.
a great group of people.
She was asking such specific questions about these huge spreadsheets, and one catch was just I mean, of course, I could hardly see it, but that's another, but I mean, it was just phenomenal. But we do have a great committee as well as design team, and Jane is leading that great committee and is just doing a phenomenal job. I did also, though, want to,
Sorry.
is there?
No.
Yeah, fine.
I just wanted to again express our condolences to Mike Norman's family. This is a wonderful custodian from Center School who unfortunately passed away a few days ago. And I had a conversation with David Twombly, who's our director of operations, and he mentioned again how important the custodial staff is in each school in terms of their kind of special connections with kids. I mean, they're just very much a part of that school community, and certainly that was the case with Mr. Norman. So I did want to just mention that. Again, I know that you and Chrissy both went to the wake and funeral, and
That's why Chrissy looked at me earlier when I thought I would wait until everybody was finished.
Yeah, sorry.
So that, no, we're finished, I think.
Yeah.
But if I could add to
Sure,
it at this
of
point.
course.
So Mike Norman, of course, was a beloved custodian at Center School, and his untimely passing was a shock to all of us. We were notified first thing in the morning by his lovely wife, Wendy. And it was a beautiful service that they had. His daughters, his two daughters, his best friend, his brother, his sister all spoke, and the stories were very entertaining about his life. We, of course, remember him as the custodian who dressed up every Halloween and high-fived all the students on the way into school, and he was very well known by the students, but it is very different